I'm running my own mail server and honestly, I love it. But for a very long time it was a single point of failure. Every reboot, every update and every misconfiguration meant just a few minutes of downtime, or in the worst case, even hours. But here's the real problem. People don't stop sending emails to you. While your mail server is down, emails are still being delivered, just not to you. And in many setups, just like mine, you will never receive them. They're just simply gone. But the solution to that is surprisingly simple. As I said, my mail server setup was fine, but it had one fatal flaw. It was a single server, a single MX record, and overall just meaning a single point of failure. So I fixed it. In this video I'll show you how I added a secondary mail exchanger using a simple postfix Docker container to eliminate mail downtime completely. And this method works on every mail server. It doesn't matter if you run Mailcow, Mailu, iRedMail or even Mail in a Box. Now, even if my main mail server goes down, emails don't. Zero downtime, that's what I'm aiming for. Full transparency, every mail server that sends and receives emails queues up emails themselves if they can't deliver them. But they don't queue them up forever and I don't want to depend on that. That's why I came up with my own solution. First, let's have a look how does a secondary mail exchanger actually work. MX records have priorities. Smaller number, higher priority. Sending servers always try the smallest number first. If that fails, they will try the next MX. And the secondary MX is not a mailbox server and not a load balancer. It's a store and forward SMTP. It accepts mail when the primary server is offline and forwards everything once it's back online. That's exactly what we're going to build. And on top of that, we're going to add a script that will tell us exactly how many mails had to go through our secondary MX. But before we start, a quick thank you to our today's sponsor, Mailu. Check out their awesome offers of different virtual private servers. Mailu is a great choice for all sorts of projects and they even offer web hosting as well. Don't forget to check them out and you can get 30% off on your first order with this promo code. Link and the promo code are in the description and also in the pinned comment. Thanks again to Mailu. Let's continue with our project. Now, what do we need to build our secondary MX? A small server with a public IP that can run Docker and Docker Compose. Please make sure that port 25 isn't blocked for outbound traffic. And of course we need a domain, but since you're already running your own mail server, I guess you already have your own domain. And as always, you can download all the files and all the commands that we're using today in this video from the link in the description. But before we start configuring the container, we're going to request a free SSL certificate from Let's Encrypt. For that, we're going to install certbot with this command apt install certbot, and to request a certificate we're going to run the command certbot cert only standalone with some additional flags here so everything goes smoothly. My domain for my secondary MX is going to be mail2.thesysAdminHub.com, and then we get those two file locations. One is the full chain PAM and the other one is the private key. We don't need to do anything with that, we just need to keep those paths in mind. I tried it before without the SSL certificates, but that meant to send and receive those emails without TLS encryption. But it's just easier with the SSL certificates because then we can send everything with TLS encryption and we don't need to compromise anything on our primary MX. And now we can start building our Docker container. We're just going to make a working directory. Mine is going to be Docker Postfix, and then let's change into it. And then we create a new file called dockercompose.yaml. I'm using Vim, but you can also do it with Nano. And then we paste our Docker Compose file just in there. Now, what do we have here? We have our backup MX. We just need to define an extra host here with our primary mail exchanger. Mine is mail.thesysAdminHub.com colon and then the IP address of your primary mail server. Mine is a Mailcow mail server. Why do we need that? Or else, I don't know why, but this container couldn't find its way to my mail server if I didn't specify it here. And then it listens to port 25, and in here you're going to tell it its name. It's mail2.thesysAdminHub.com, and the domain is the sysadminhub.com. You're going to use your own values here. And this one is going to be a really important one. The postfix relay host is going to be your primary mail server, so that this container knows where to forward the emails that it's storing and queuing up. And this part here is for TLS inbound and outbound. And down here at the bottom and in the volumes, we're going to put in our Let's Encrypt certificates into the container with read only. That way it can use those certificates for the TLS encryption. And for the DNS records, I forgot to mention, first you need an A record with mail to and your domain with the IP address of your server, because or else you can't request the SSL certificates, but you also need that for your secondary MX, because here you're going to add another MX record for your domain, the whole domain, with the value of your A record, in my case mail2.sysadminhub.com, and then make sure it's a priority higher, a higher number than your primary MX. If you follow my tutorials, then your primary MX is 10, so your secondary MX can be 20. And if you have multiple domains, you need to add that secondary MX to every domain that you have. Now, before we start up our Docker container, one important security check. Don't be an open relay. In the Docker Compose file, you can specify which domains are accepted, and only emails for that domains are queued up and will be sent forward to your primary MX. And that's configured in this line here, postfix relay domains, meaning that this container only accepts emails for the sysadminhub.com and the sysadminhub.net. All other emails, even if they use the same MX record for primary or secondary, doesn't matter. This Docker container will just ignore those emails. And then of course, security-wise, everything else you do on the server is just standard server hygiene. So now let's start up our container and see if everything is working. With Docker PS, we can see that the container is up and running. So now let's test if everything is working. 4 steps for that. First, we check the DNS records if everything is really working. Second, we simulate some downtime by stopping our Mailcow mail server. Then we're going to send a test mail with my Gmail test account. We check the logs if everything is running smoothly, and then we restore our primary MX, and we will see that the emails are going to be delivered. And to check the DNS records, we can run dig mx and then your domain, and it should output you first the priority and then the value, which is the A record, to your mail server. So in my case, I have 2 in here. First the primary and then the secondary one. Now part 2 is to simulate the downtime, and for that I'm just going to go into my Mailcow mail server and run Docker Compose down, and now it will shut down and remove every container from my Mailcow mail server, which means I can't send mails, but more importantly, I also can't accept and receive emails on my Mailcow mail server anymore right now. I've set up a test Gmail account, and we're going to send something to test@sysadminhub.com. Let's call it test mail, and then let's just say mail server down. Let's send this. And here on our secondary MX server, we can run the command docker exec secondary MX, which is the name of the Docker container, and then postq-p, which will tell us that one email has been sent from the sysadminhub@gmail.com to test@sysadminhub.com. In here you can see the IP address and the port, and says connection refused because the mail server is not here. And that's exactly what we want. When our primary MX is down, we still want to receive the email, so the sending mail server doesn't need to queue up anything for we don't know how many hours, but it's already on our server. Now all that we have to do is to get our primary MX back online, and then we can see that the email will be delivered. On my Mailcow mail server, I'm going to run Docker Compose up-d, so all the Docker containers will be created again and everything will be up and running again. Alright, my Mailcow server is already back online, and we can log in into the test@sysadminhub.com. Okay, those were some tests I did beforehand. We don't need them anymore. Let's empty this. So our email is still not there yet. Why? Even though our primary MX is back online, it doesn't mean that it will be sent the second it's online. Our secondary MX will try every 5 minutes or so to deliver the email again. If it can't, it will just queue it up again until it can send it. So if you run the same command again, we're going to see that the email is still queued up in here. But we can also run the command docker logs -f for follow and then the name of the container, and then in here we will see in lifetime once it will be delivered. There also is a command to requeue everything on the secondary MX, and then it will try to send everything that second, but I want to try it out the normal way how it's supposed to be in production. But the command will be included in the commands file, of course. And after a few minutes we got this line here, status equals sent with OK, which also means in here in my Mailcow mail server, we have our email here, mail server down, which is super nice. If you're enjoying my content, leave a like, comment, and consider subscribing. It really helps out small channels like mine grow. And if you'd like to support the work that I do and unlock some extra perks, check out my Patreon. Your support helps me keep creating more videos like this. Thank you for being awesome. And that's it. The core setup is now complete. Our secondary MX accepted an email during downtime and held it safe in a queue and then delivered everything once the primary server was back online. From this point forward, your emails are no longer at risk during outages. But there's one more thing. A backup MX only works if you know it's doing its job. Right now, everything works quietly in the background, which means you won't notice problems until users complain. That's why I want to show you how to add logging, monitoring, and email notifications to make the setup production ready. The following part is optional. You can stop watching here if you just want a working secondary MX. But if you run an email server for a company or anything business related, I highly recommend this logging and notification setup. I've prepared a few things to make this work. So first we're going to create a new file in the location user local bin, and then we call it secondary mx full monitor.sh. You can call it however you want. In here we're going to paste in the script that I created. Don't worry if this looks a little bit complex, you don't need to understand every single line. The important thing is what this script does. Essentially, it just runs the docker log command, and if it finds a line with status deferred, connection refused, lost connection, timeout, or no route to host, then it will log something into a log file. And with this change mod command, we're going to make this script executable. And then we're going to make this script into a service, into a daemon. That way it will always run even if you restart the server. For that, we're going to create a file in etc systemd system, and then we call it secondary mx monitor.service with this content here. The important thing here is the file location and the file name of your script. So let's save this. Now we need to run 3 commands. The first one is to reload the daemon service. Then we need to enable our new servers, so it will start up every time when we reboot our server. And with systemctl status and then the name of our service, we can check if it's running. It should say here enabled, and it should say active and running. That was the logging part. Now we need the notification part. For that, I prepared another script. Also in the location user local bin, we're going to create a new file called secondary mx log mail.sh, and we're going to paste this content in here. Again, this looks very complex, but what it does is just checking the logging file, and if something is written in there, it's going to send an email to an email address of our choice. And after that, it's going to empty the log file so we don't get the same logs over and over and over again. And this script also needs to be made executable with change mod 755 like this. And in order that the script can send emails, we need msmtp. We're just going to install it like this with this apt install command. And now that that is installed, we just need to give it a configuration with another file in etc, and let's call the file msmtprc. And in this file, you just need to specify the mail server with the port. If you're using TLS, it's 587, and then specify an email from and also a user. The password will be in a separate file, and we're going to enable start TLS. So for me, it's going to look like this: mail.thesysAdminHub.com, then from test, and then I'm going to use the test account here that I have on my mail server. And the last command is that we need to run this echo command with our password for this mailbox, so our configuration will work. And then let's secure our new files with this change mod command, so only the root user can access and read them and open them. And to make sure that the script can also run this command, we're going to test it first with this command here, and then it should send us an email to our mailbox. And this is already looking really good. It says here 250 OK, 250 OK, and in here also 250 OK. And in here on the webmail on my Mailcow mail server on the email account test@sysadminhub.com, we can see the email arrived. So what did we just do right now? We have one script to check the Docker logs if an email goes through our secondary MX. If so, it will write something into a special log file. Our second script can check that log file, and if something is inside, it can use MSMTP to send an email to whatever email address you want to specify. And after that, it will clear out that log file so we don't get any old logs anymore. So let's test that out too. With this command, we can write something in our log, and then let's see if everything is in here. Yes, it is. And then we can run the script manually with the script name, and it uses one parameter, which is the mail address it should send something to. And then it looks something like this. This is an automated email from secondary MX alert monitor, and it even says the host name and then the log file, and then it says what is been written in there. So far so good. Now we just need to do one last thing. We're going to configure a cron job for this command to send our logging emails. In the location etc cron d, we're going to create a new file. You can call it however you want. Just make sure that you will remember what this cron job is for. And then I prepared this for you. You only choose one of those, or else it won't work properly. So the first line, it will run every hour, the script. The second, it will run every 4 hours. And this one will run once per day at 7 AM, or you can specify any other time of day you want here. That means you just need to comment out or to delete those lines that you don't want to use. And then of course you need to specify the mailbox that you want to use. Let's make this into test just to keep it nice and simple. Let's save this. And for good measure, let's restart our cron service and check that everything is running fine. It also already says us there's a bad username while reading this one here. Okay, 1 second. Yeah, sorry, my bad. I forgot to add the username in here. I'm going to run this with root. So now this should work in the download file. It will be corrected already. And now let's run this again. And then it should say it's active and running and no error here anymore. That's good. So now we will always know what's going on our secondary MX. So let's go once through this again and simulate another downtime. So I'm going to stop my Mailcow mail server, send a test email, see what has been logged, get our mail server back online, and then let's see if we get the notification. Shutting down my Mailcow mail server, sending an email during mail server downtime. Let's see what has been logged. There's an email that couldn't been sent because our mail server is down. So now let's bring back online our Mailcow mail server. We still have this one email in the queue, but in a couple of minutes it will be sent automatically to our Mailcow mail server. And now our email has been delivered. And now we can check the logs. It has logged that something couldn't be sent and then it was delivered afterwards. And now we can run our script manually, so we don't have to wait for 1 hour until the cron job runs. So let's do it like this, and it takes a while, but then it will send us the email. And in here in our webmail, we got a new email from our secondary MX. It's called Alerts on Ubuntu, and it shows us the same thing as in our log file here, that an email couldn't be delivered, status deferred, and then later on it was sent with status sent 250 OK. And just to make sure, if we check our log again, now it's empty, meaning that after the email is sent, we don't get those old records from the log anymore. And don't worry, if it tries to send the log while the primary MX is still offline, the cron job will just stop and the log will still be there, and then it will just try to resend the log 1 hour later or 4 hours later or the next day, depending on how you set up your cron job. This is it. This is how I removed a major single point of failure on my mail server stack. With one Docker container and one additional MX record, you will still be able to receive emails even during server downtime. And as I said, this setup works for any self-hosted mail server out there. So feel free to use the commands and the files. You can download them all in the description. Subscribe for more content like this and stay tuned for future videos. Because I got something in mind to replace those old school email notifications and use push notifications on my phone. And a big thank you again to Mailu for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check them out. Use the link in the description with this promo code to get 30% off of your first order for the first 3 months. Thanks so much for watching and see you next time.